Well, at the end of days, truth is under attack and lies will abound, okay? That's what Jesus says in Matthew 24. Basically, that is why Jesus tells us in Matthew 24:15 and 24, watch out for false teachers and this false, lying, rapscallion beast, the Antichrist. Watch out for him. Well, the situation 100 years ago was such that the evangelical world, by the way, evangelical means that's the group of Christendom that believes people have to be born again. There are non-evangelicals, and those are the purveyors of this idea that if you just join the church and kind of have holy things done to you like christening and baptism at your birth and confirmation and other little things, sacraments along the way, that you kind of work your way into salvation. That's called non-evangelical. Evangelical means gospel. That isn't the gospel. Evangelicals, that's us, believe that people are born lost and they have to hear the gospel, respond to it, and become saved. That's an evangelical. So there is a point where we turn from darkness to light. It's not this kind of gradual Christianization and, kind of like homogenizing and doing stuff in your life so that you gradually get the sin separated out and you get enough righteousness that it balances out and you kind of are good enough for God. That's non-evangelical. Evangelicals are those who believe you must be born again at a point in time when Christ radically changes your life. There have always been evangelicals. 100 years ago, these were the prime evangelicals in the world. The who's who of Christianity was R.A. Torrey. He started Biola. He was Dwight L. Moody's successor, great evangelist. Also, B.B. Warfield. He started Westminster Seminary. J.C. Ryle, you've probably heard of him, a devotional writer. G. Campbell Morgan. He was kind of the John MacArthur of the day. I mean, he was Mr. Exposition of the Bible. Great Bible teacher. C.I. Scofield, study Bible guy. Remember the lawyer from Philadelphia that wrote the study Bible. James M. Gray, Moody Bible Institute. A.T. Pearson, great devotional writer. These men gathered together 100 years ago and sat down and wrote down and boiled down all of theology into 7 essentials. And they said, you've got to believe these to guard from this lie of the devil that's coming. And basically, they presented and explained these 7 doctrines in this 4-volume set called The Fundamentals. Here are the 7 doctrines. Wouldn't it interest you to know what they thought were the non-negotiables 100 years ago? Number 1, first volume, is inspiration. And the title was The Inspiration and Reliability and Historicity of the Bible. In other words, they said the Bible is true and we must believe it. Number 2 is creation. That was number 2 of their important doctrines. And they said the error of evolutionism and Darwinism must be confronted or it will destroy the church. That was 100 years ago. It's destroying the church. If the pastors of Tulsa can't even agree that the Bible says anything about creation, the church is being destroyed. And that's why the young people, if you think you're just a blob of protoplasm that came out of a primeval swamp, then you can live like an animal because you are one, right? And that's our culture. And that's where we're going. Number 3 was doctrine itself. And they named the cult errors of the day. And they said these are the cults that must be avoided because they're damnable. And they listed them as Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, Christian Science, and Spiritism. That's an occultic religion, which is with us all the time, with horoscopes and astrology and all the blatant Wicca and all the other stuff that's going on. And so they confronted that. Number 4, depravity. That was their 4th fundamental. And they said the reality of sin and its effects on our lives. And that was to go against Horace Bushnell, if you've ever heard of him, who believed that if you just educated people and got them a better house and everything, that they would get better. And that's what our country subscribed to. That's why we had the Great Society in the 60s and 70s to kind of clean everything up so everybody gets better. And that's denying the reality of sin. And they said that's a fundamental. Number 5, inspiration, creation, doctrine, depravity. Number 5 is substitution. Biblical salvation by faith through the grace of God in Jesus Christ as the one who took my place. I was guilty. He took my place. My sins went on him. Substitution. He gave himself for me. They said that is a prime doctrine which is missing in the lie of the devil. Number 6 is imputation. Now it's interesting. 100 years ago, all evangelicals came under the banner of the fundamentals in the turn of the century, and they said imputation is the key doctrine of salvation, and they unitedly said, we stand against the damnable errors of Roman Catholicism. All evangelicals said the Roman Catholic Church teaches incorrectly about the imputed work of Christ, that Jesus died in my place, and simply by faith I receive that gift. Non-evangelicals say you get it one dose at a time. It's kind of like being inoculated. At birth, you get the first one, the little baptism to get your initial original sin, and then you come to confirmation, you get another dose of it, and then if you come to Mass every week, you get more, but you never quite get enough, and so you have to go to purgatory to get kind of cleaned out and sin-freed, purged down there, and then finally get to heaven. That was totally opposed by all evangelicals 100 years ago. Haven't we changed? The Roman Church hasn't changed. They don't believe anything different than they believed since the 16th century, when they put it all down on print, when Martin Luther stood against them. They haven't changed. The church has not changed. They're just painting themselves up and talking our talk, but they haven't changed. The heart of Romanism hasn't changed. And finally, the last fundamental is Christology, the deity, the work, and the person of Jesus Christ and his visible return. And so those were the fundamentals. Inspiration would be believed, creation would be believed, doctrine would be taught, depravity would be believed, substitution would be accepted, imputation would be received, and Christology would be affirmed. And those were the fundamentals. And now what is fundamental? Fundamentalist terrorists, fundamentalist wackos, fundamentalist extremists. We need to go back to fundamentalists know doctrine and defend it.